think a good producer could fairly see him or herself as an artist.
The art of radio is really important to me. I think it's a craft that we have an opportunity to do at NPR that nobody else gets a chance to do.
It's putting together things that are in the news that don't belong together, but actually say something about where we are in the world on this day. And when you go home, you feel like, I said that. Nobody else said that. That's why I'm here.
I think one of the things a producer on any show can do is to come up with ideas that nobody has ever thought of, or to come up with interesting twists on ideas that everybody has thought of.
The producer has to become the advocate for the listener, which I think that's a very important role.
When you ask the question, what's the role of a producer, often I think the first part of that answer is who you're working with.
I like it when the lines are blurred somewhat, or a lot. When it's not clear exactly who reported everything, when it's not clear exactly who wrote everything, might not even be clear exactly who cut the tape.
I think it's something we rarely talk about, but is very important, and that is the importance of having a wide range of footwear.
The hallmark of a good producer is someone who's a good reporter first and foremost, and a good writer.
My name is Jeffrey Katz, and a long, long time ago, I worked on this show, what was it called? Morning Edition.
Every word counts, and I'm constantly trying to keep in mind a listener, what do I need to do to get them right from that first sentence, to not give away everything, but intrigue them so that they want to hear the sentence after that and sentence after that. I'm
looking at the writing from so many different levels. Is it powerful? Does it make sense? Is it poetic? Does it have the right rhythm? Does it lay out the facts slowly one by one so that somebody who's busy making breakfast or driving the car can follow the story?
I'm very impatient with my pieces, and I feel like if I'm bored with the piece, the listeners are bored. Now, I have the attention span of a 2-year-old, but I think that serves me well.
These, mudslide. You never know when you might be called to go out and cover some sort of mudslide here in Washington or in some further locale.
Steve has a very quick mind, and I think as producers, not only do we have to keep up with that mind, but we've got to try to be at least one step ahead of him in a story.
For much of our political coverage, it's often very good to wear one of one kind of shoe and one of the other. Let me make sure I have one for each foot. Yes, I do.
I'm not always easy to work with. Big surprise. Big shock. I'm not always easy to work with.
I have no choice but to tell you, you're fired.
But I think people who've worked with me a lot will understand after a while that I listen, that I pay attention to what a producer is telling me, that I give it a lot of thought.
Now, these just look like sort of a typical pair of shoes, what some people have often referred to as the bitchy little boot.
One of Renee's greatest strengths is writing. If you can get Renee into a situation that she can touch and see and feel, then that really plays to her strengths to use language to bring listeners into that experience.
These, of course, a tad more feminine, and these sort of send that message that you mean business, but there's that air of femininity. I am woman, hear me roar.
I have 4 beats in almost every interview and almost every story. It's the beginning, it's the wonderful first thing, it's the next thing that flows in some sense out of that, it's a peak moment, and then it's an end. And in every single story or interview I do, I'm looking for those 4 things.
I tell you, the rewarding part of this for me is often after a crash, when we've spent either several hours or a few minutes crashing something onto air, and to see the look in my colleagues' faces after a crash like that is really a pleasure to be a part of.
No matter how you define it, no matter how you work, whether it's super collaboratively or want to go out, do the whole piece, people must always think of themselves, producers must always think of themselves as journalists.
And leaving behind an impression that's more than just the words, that's more than just the sum of all of its parts, that's something that lingers. I always have a word for it, I call it the audio charisma.
I'd say the pieces I'm most drawn to are the ones that at some point during the piece I find myself making an audible response, be it a or a oh my God.
It's kind of like Potter Stewart said about pornography. You know it when you see it, but it's hard to define.
During the transition, we got 30,000 negative emails from listeners, and we deserved that. A year later, 30,000 emails versus 800,000 new listeners. 30,000 emails, 800,000 new listeners. I will take the 800,000 new listeners. Congratulations.